if it's an atheistic regime, then how come that in the first chapter of Mein Kampf, Hitler says he's doing God's work and executing God's will in destroying the Jewish people? How come the Führer oath that every officer of the party and the army had to take, making Hitler into a minor god, begins, I swear in the name of Almighty God, my loyalty to the Führer? How come that on the belt buckle of every Nazi soldier it says Gott mit uns, God on our side? How come that the first treaty made by
All right, so I've been watching some talks from Hitchens over the past few days, and I came across what I would describe as heavy implications that the National Socialist Party was a Christian organization. Now, some argue this simply because Christian emblems and traditions were present at the time that the Third Reich was in power. They seem to believe that Christianity itself was to blame for the outlook of the Third Reich. Now, Germany had been constituted as a unified Christian state in 1871 and had been Christian since its birth. Germany's predecessors, the Holy Roman Empire and Prussia, had been Christian for over 1,000 years. But here's the thing. Never before had that country, or any other in Europe, seen an event like what took place in the 1940s. Never before had there been such an organized extermination of competing ethnic groups, not in Germany. So what changed? Well, it was the party that was in power at that time that changed the course of Germany, and it was the goals of that party and the morals of that party which shaped the war that they created. A war like that war had never been seen in Europe and has not been seen since. It was a war started by the National Socialist Party. Christianity existed on both sides, the Axis and the Allies, but it was one side that chose to create extermination camps, and it was one side that claimed to ensure the survival of the fittest.
But okay, on the Hitler thing, look, I don't know what his religious views really were. Some say he was a Catholic, the religion he was baptized into and confirmed in. He did also write in Mein Kampf that, quote, "In standing guard against the Jew, I am doing the handiwork of the Lord."
All right, so now Mein Kampf was published in 1925. It was published over a decade before World War II began. It is a document that was always intended to be read by the German public. The National Socialist Party was not in power at the time that book was written. In fact, this book was written from a prison cell, where key members of the National Socialist Party were being held as enemies of the Weimar Republic. This was the early 1920s. Mein Kampf was written from a position of vulnerability. The National Socialist Party knew that this document would be read by a majority Christian nation. Now, thankfully, we do have a transcript of what Hitler said in private with the intention of keeping it private. Even better, we have a transcript that was written during World War II. It's called Table Talk. Now, Table Talk was written by Hitler's private secretary. It records conversations that he had in private when he was at the height of his power between 1941 and 1944. Table Talk was written in a position of power, unlike Mein Kampf. And in it, he states his private views on Christianity. Christianity is a rebellion against natural law, a protest against nature. Taken to its logical extreme, Christianity would mean the systematic cultivation of the human failure. 10th October, 1941. The best thing is to let Christianity die a natural death. A slow death has something comforting about it. The dogma of Christianity gets worn away before the advances of science. 14th of October, 1941. Christianity, of course, has reached the peak of absurdity in this respect. And that's why one day its structure will collapse. Science has already impregnated humanity. Consequently, the more Christianity clings to its dogmas, the quicker it will decline. 14th of October, 1941. The reason why the ancient world was so pure, light, and serene was that it knew nothing of the two great scourges, the pox and Christianity. 19th October, 1941. When all is said, we have no reason to wish that the Italians and Spaniards should free themselves from the drug of Christianity. Let's be the only people who are immunized against the disease. 13th of December, 1941. But Christianity is an invention of sick brains. One could imagine nothing more senseless, nor any more indecent way of turning the idea of the Godhead into a mockery. 13th December, 1941. One cannot succeed in conceiving how much cruelty, ignominy, and falsehood the intrusion of Christianity has spelt for this world of ours. 4th of February, 1942. Okay, so as you've seen from the conversations and table talk, Hitler rejected Christianity. This anti-Christian sentiment wasn't unique to Hitler either. High-ranking Nazis like Heinrich Himmler and Alfred Rosenberg shared similar views, seeking to replace Christianity with neo-pagan or racial ideologies. While the Nazi regime sometimes used Christian imagery for propaganda, their ultimate goal was to subvert and eliminate Christianity in favor of their racial and political agenda. The implication that the Nazis were a Christian regime ignores the reality of their beliefs and their actions. The evidence is clear. Hitler and his inner circle were not Christians and were fundamentally opposed to Christian teachings.
Whatever his own views personally were, he had every Nazi soldier wear belt buckles inscribed with the words "Gott mit uns," God with us.
How come that on the belt buckle of every Nazi soldier it says Gott mit uns, God on our side? How come?
Wird weit. Gott mit uns. Gott mit uns.
All right, the notorious belt buckles. So, the belt buckles inscribed with Gott mit uns were not introduced by Adolf Hitler or the Nazis. In fact, this phrase has a much longer history. The Prussian army adopted Gott mit uns on its belt buckles in the 1800s, long before the Nazis came to power. By World War I, this insignia was already widely adopted in the German military. Here is a picture of the belt worn in World War I, containing the same phrasing as the belt that was worn in World War II. You see, Hitler did not make his troops wear this belt. It was already in place as a continuation of German military tradition. The Wehrmacht, Germany's regular army, simply carried on using the same belt buckle that had been worn for decades before the Nazis. In fact, the National Socialist Party explicitly changed the belt buckle design for their most loyal and ideologically driven force, the SS. They rejected the traditional Gott mit uns motto for the SS and replaced it with the phrase, Meine Ehre heilt Traut, my honor is loyalty. This deliberate change reveals a stark departure from the traditional religious appeals and emphasizes the Nazi focus on the loyalty to Hitler and the party over any religious allegiance. Here is a picture of the belt buckle worn by the SS in World War II, containing the phrase, Meine Ehre heilt Traut, my honor is loyalty. Notice the significant deviation in design and the removal of God from the ornament. Now, there's a quote you might find interesting in table talk. I find it very interesting, and I find it interesting in relation to this change in design. The quote goes like this. Our people had previously succeeded in living all right without this religion. I have 6 divisions of SS composed of men absolutely indifferent in matters of religion. It doesn't prevent them from going to their deaths with serenity in their souls. 13th December, 1941. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. I hope this answers some of the questions that you had. And if it didn't, I hope it gave you something to think about. In a certain way, it makes the history of the National Socialist Party just that much more complicated. But I think it reveals that people are not always what they seem, and that many organizations, both past and present, intend to hide their true motivations. If you thought I was wrong about anything in this video, if you didn't like the framing that I used and want to let me know, mention it in the comment section. I'll leave you with one last quote at the end, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye.